Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Welcome back to Newark and Sherwood, people. It's early in the morning here. I've got a lot to do today, and we're beginning this episode and this entire run of 7 that you're about to see in Newark and Sherwood outside one of the most impressive buildings in the district. I'll turn the camera around here and you can see what I'm talking about. That right there is the workhouse, Southwell Workhouse, although we're not in Southwell because that falls within the boundaries of the parish of Upton. This Newark and Sherwood video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Here we go again, folks, yet another Upton. Villages with this name are common in England and there's a few more to see yet. This is Newark and Sherwood's version, which lies 2 miles east of the town of Southwell and 5 miles to the west of Newark. Upton sits on a bend at the summit of a hill which commands a fine view of the Trent Valley. Lying close to the Fosse Way, the history of the area goes back to Roman times. There have been various Roman finds in the area like an urn, coins and other relics, most of which were discovered close to the church in 1709. In Anglo-Saxon times, Upton is believed to have been on the boundary of the kingdoms of Mercia and Lindsey. Upton is a pretty village. It has a church with no fewer than 9 pinnacles, a village hall, a pub and a cricket club, but its defining feature would be Upton Hall. Once lived in by the Warwick family, who were famed for brewing, Upton Hall now houses a museum dedicated to timekeeping. Also within the boundaries is another major tourist attraction, Southwell Workhouse. Built in 1824, it's widely regarded as the finest remaining building of its kind. And whilst the parish may have these incredible features, you can't overlook its residents either, especially not Fiona Thornwell, who in 2004 completed an amazing journey to the South Pole. All that and more to come, let's go! This is Southwell Workhouse, which is more commonly known as the Workhouse or sometimes as the Great House. It was built in 1824. No longer a workhouse, obviously, it's now a museum which is operated by the National Trust and was open to the public in 2002. It's described by the National Trust as the best preserved workhouse in England, and even when it was built it was generally considered to be the best in the country. It was designed by William Adams Nicholson and the Reverend John T. Betcher, a pioneer of workhouse and prison reform. The building remained in use until the early 1990s, when it was used to provide temporary accommodation for mothers and children. Before the National Trust stepped in, it was potentially going to be turned into residential apartments. Thankfully, this important piece of British history lives on. Many of its rooms have been redecorated to reflect what they would have looked like in the 19th century. Of course, I would like to stand right in front of it and give you the full sort of big shot if you like, but I can't because the hedge is in the way, so it's a bit difficult to do. Hopefully there's not going to be any such issues at the next sort of big landmark, which we can find in Upton Village itself. Let's go there and find what it's got. So this is Upton, and we begin on Main Street at the village's western end. There used to be a school close to here, which is now a B&B. Upton also had a post mill and a water mill centuries back. It still has the odd farm, including this one. This is Chapel Farm, and you don't need to be a genius to work out how it gets its name. Next door is a former Wesleyan Methodist chapel, which was built in 1831. It now stands empty and boarded up. Next is the pub, the Cross Keys, which serves food and real ales. A dog-friendly pub, the beer garden to the rear offers scenic views of the Trent Valley. Just beyond the pub we bump into an information board. There are 3 of these in the village, 1 at each end and 1 close to the centre. And after rounding a bend we find Upton Manor, and as grand a property as this is, if we're talking big houses, look no further than our next landmark. Now, aside from the workhouse, probably the most well-known building in Upton is the one that's right behind me. It's the yellow structure you can see. That is Upton Hall, and that is now a museum. It's the Museum of Timekeeping. Upton Hall stands just off the main road through the village. It was built in 1828 for Thomas Wright, a Nottinghamshire banker. It was designed by the architect W.J. Dontholm. It was then purchased in 1895 by John Warwick, a brewer of the firm Warwick and Richardson, based in Newark. He used it as a family home and added various rooms, giving us the grand property we see today. Nowadays it houses a museum owned and managed by the British Horological Institute. The institute was founded by a group of clockmakers in 1858. Horology is the study of time, the word deriving from the word hour. Since 1972, the institute have occupied Upton Hall, and their Museum of Timekeeping is an independent charity established in 1994. It includes a collection of clocks, watches and other timepieces, as well as various clockmaking tools. It can be visited seasonally or via a private appointment. And if you want to visit the museum, handily there's a bus stop right outside it. Here we go. This is at Church Walk. The number 28, the 29 and the 300 services stop at this bus stop, and as you can see it is directly opposite the hall. Now, speaking of Church Walk, that's where we're going next. So to the church dedicated to St Peter and St Paul. A prominent village feature, this has a substantial perpendicular tower crowned by 9 pinnacles, 8 around the edge of the tower and a master pinnacle in the centre. It's a unique feature. Believe it or not, the tower was used as a dovecote at one time. The church was built in the 13th century. The year 1250 is generally accepted to be the date of its founding, but there's no definitive evidence for that. The church was restored in the 17th century and again in the 1820s and 1860s. It can seat 250 people at full capacity. I'd have liked to have gone in and taken a look around, but it was too early in the morning for that here, so it was closed. Once through the churchyard, we'll find ourselves standing outside the village hall. A pleasant, warm and welcoming venue, this features a modular stage and spotlights and can accommodate around 50 to 60 people for events and functions. It's got to be one of the most peculiar village halls I've ever seen, that, because there's nothing on it to tell you it is a village hall. The only reason I know it's a village hall is because I planned it on the map on the route. But there you go. Okay, we're going to continue down the footpath, which is to the left of this, and this will take us to the far eastern end of the village, and then we're going to start and make our way back. The footpath footpath brings us to Upton's eastern end via Carr Lane. We're now about to take on Main Street from the other end, and it's fair to say the village isn't like it used to be 100 years ago. This is the oldest part of Upton, and you can tell it was originally a linear village by the cottages and farmhouses built along its main street. The architecture here is traditional brick and pan tile, and it has a warm and friendly feel, even if the weather didn't agree on this particular day. Before long, we hit the green where we find the old post office. That's the thatched cottage you can see here. In its wall is a postbox from the time of George V. It's residential now, so too is the former village shop, which is long gone. Upton's nearest shops these days are located in Southwell. And then we reach the phone box, which isn't a book exchange or the location of the defib machine, because it still has its phone. Okay, we've reached the centre of the village and I found a parish notice board. Now this one is a magnet board. I haven't seen any of these before. Let's see if this will stick on with a magnet. Yes, it will. There we go. Brilliant. That saves my blue tack supplies. So I'll just lock it back up. Thank you very much, Upton Parish Council. This central part of Upton has a small garden set back from the road. It's a peaceful little corner of the village, and it's where the local Christmas tree goes when it's that time of year. It's also got a few memorial benches to past Upton residents. It seems like the ideal place to sit and watch the world go by. It's right on the bend in the road. This is what you'd effectively call the village centre, I suppose. This road is busy, by the way. It's been an important highway for many years. Let's go somewhere quieter. This is Hockerton Lane or Hockerton Road according to this sign. I guess it's whichever you prefer. This takes us to a bend where there's a footpath that traverses a field and takes us back to the beginning. There's not really anything of note down here, but it does take us past the back of Upton Hall, so we get a look at it from another angle. Now, just before we finish this episode off, let's talk a bit about Upton's most famous daughter. Today's special section gives us the remarkable tale of Fiona Thornwell. Born in Upton in 1966, she attended Lowes Wong Junior School in nearby Southwell before going to the Rodney School in Kirklington. She's an explorer who, in 2004, reached the South Pole solo and unaided. She did so by walking and skiing over 700 miles from the edge of the continent, and her feet would etch her names into the history books. Beginning at the Hercules Inlet, it took her 41 days from start to finish, which is the all-time outright record. The previous record stood at 44 days, and the previous best for a woman was 50 days. Walking 22 miles a day, Fiona had to pull a sledge weighing 285 pounds, and her success is perhaps even more remarkable considering she lost her satellite navigation system 10 days in. In completing the expedition, she also beat a rival, fellow polar explorer Rosie Stancer. And to finish this episode off, we've come to the north of the village. It wouldn't be Nottinghamshire without there being a cricket club now, would it? There we go. Upton Cricket Club, established 1855. And there you go. That is the parish of Upton completed. Time for me to move on to my next one here in Newark and Sherwood, and all I have to do is head up this lane right here on which the cricket club is sited, and it'll take me towards it. Do hope you've enjoyed this episode. it's been quite a good one. I've enjoyed my little walk around this morning. It's been nice and quiet, even though the main road through the village is quite a busy one. It's been quiet in general, and I quite like that in the morning. It means I can get on with it and people aren't in my way effectively. Anyway, that's been the parish of Upton, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.